Hello, you're turned into Greenfield Community Television. I'm Bella Levavi, and I'm here with Ahmad Esfahani, and he is going to tell us about being a representative in the Republican National Convention this past week. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Of course.
I just wanted to start off if you wanted to talk in general about your experience, anything that you want to speak about, feel free.
Sure. Well, this was my first national convention as a delegate, and it was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I think the first thing to comment upon was just the intense military and police presence of the place. They had, kind of warded off a certain section of the city for, I guess, delegate and convention activities. So that was, contributing to the stress of the overall experience. We were given certain bags that we had to take through security that were, clear and that were approved by the Secret Service. So there was this element of safety, obviously, given the, the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. That was probably something that, perhaps made that more severe, or that might have been standard practice regardless. But that in itself was probably what I remember the most, at least from, having not been to one. But the convention itself, I attended a lot of professional wrestling when I was a kid in Atlanta, and it had that type of atmosphere to it. It was just very, music playing in between speeches, and it had kind of like a carnival atmosphere. But it was very, the excitement was very contagious of the place. So when Donald Trump arrived the first night, Monday night, it was just a buzz. Everyone was just all excited and, looking to see what was going to happen. And he showed up, obviously, with the bandage on his ear and just kind of sat there. And, but, yeah, I mean, that's, kind of initial snapshot of what it was like.
So let me back up with you a
Of
bit.
course.
Can you explain to me why you were interested in being a delegate for the convention?
Of course. Well, I guess, a couple of reasons. One of which I had, when I moved to Massachusetts, I became involved with the Massachusetts Republican Party because I had moved from New Hampshire and I was involved in the New Hampshire Republican Party. So it was really kind of happenstance. I received an email from, kind of the listserv or whatever it's called, with everyone who's receiving the emails for the Massachusetts GOP, and said, would you want to be a delegate? And I said, fine. So I looked at the requirements and kind of what it would be as far as the obligations and responsibilities. So I thought it would be an experience, most certainly, given the present political climate and everything. And also, I wanted to go in because it seems, especially with Donald Trump, but maybe even politics in general, that it seems very much, if you're with us, you're with us 100%, and if you're not with us, then you're not with us 100%. So I don't really engage in politics in that fashion. I'm more for open debate within party and cross party, and we're all supposed to kind of be in the same government, so kind of different sides. So I guess wanting to participate as a not neutral Republican, but definitely a Republican that was open to, I guess, well, maybe this will help explain it. So in the convention, there was, and I imagine this is the same for the Democrat, but I'm not sure. It was very much, we're going to promote what we're going to do, and we're going to have speakers that are talking about the policies and things that we want to promote. And I thought when I was there that it would maybe be a better idea if the Republican convention were to invite people from the Democratic Party to speak, and vice versa, because it's supposed to be about finding some sort of middle ground and working together, and whether or not you're agreeing or not, but you're supposed to kind of work, you know, for a common goal or common good as the nation. But that's not what I experienced. And that, you know, honestly, I kind of anticipated that a little bit, but I think I wanted to see it with my own eyes. I wanted to see the, you know, whether it's been a loss of that sort of, you know, cross-party dialogue. Because, you know, some people say, oh, it's not worth it anymore because of the extreme of the far right and the far left and so on. But it was really, you know, I want to experience this and witness this for myself. So that was probably, you know, the short answer to your question is to learn and to observe. So.
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you plan on voting for Donald Trump during this election?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, right now, especially with Kamala, you know, kind of moving ahead as a Democrat candidate, it's hard to say because you know, sitting there in the convention, I was thinking that it would seem to make more sense if J.D. Vance was the presidential nominee and Donald Trump was the vice presidential nominee, because it just, you know, kind of understanding the hatred that Trump does receive from a good, you know, seems to be a good chunk of the population of this country. Vance appears to be a younger guy with maybe not as much of the animosity that has developed. So I'll probably decide the day of the vote, because, you know, so much has happened and will happen up to that point. So it's hard to say, like, right now who I think should be in that office when we've got three more months of campaigning and finger pointing and probably you know, angry words from both sides. If you know, if I were to have to vote today, I might not vote at all, because it does seem that there's a lack of, all right, you know, but for both sides, I'm willing to discuss and work out an agreement with people I disagree with. That doesn't seem to be present right now. So, and that's, for me, one of the more important things about government and politics is, okay, people who disagree are coming together to agree on a government and agree on, you know, a certain system of life that I think is the road and the stability underneath a peaceful coexistence. And that does not appear to be what's happening at present. So I would have to wait till then to decide.
Can you explain to the viewers what a delegate actually does at the convention? Like, what was your role?
Of course. So, when you go to the national convention, there's delegates and there's alternate delegates. All of the delegates are on the floor of the convention, and all the alternates are kind of up in the bleachers. And the delegates are meant to vote. But to be honest, and perhaps this was just, you know, I have to plead a little ignorance here, because there could be processes that I just wasn't familiar with, but I did not seem to engage in any type of, like, voting as you would, like, think of in a select board meeting or city council meeting. It wasn't like it was, like, registered or tallied. It was more, we as a delegation are voting, and I was kind of part of a delegation that voted. So I think from my experience, the role of a delegate appeared, and maybe that's the most important word, appeared to be fairly ceremonial, and not so much like official. It seemed to be that, you know, the decisions and the momentum of what was going to happen was kind of already kind of decided, and delegates were there more or less to kind of have a butt in a seat and to demonstrate some sort of unified presence, I guess. So.
So I know you to be an active Palestine liberation activist, and I'm just curious. Clearly, you're wearing your keffiyeh, I assume, to show solidarity, and I was just wondering if you could talk about your experience with those views and being a member of the Republican Party?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I think, you know, for me, the difference between Republican and Democratic Party, if we kind of take away all the celebrity and, you know, politicians associated with those parties, for me, Democrat is okay, the people should all vote on a certain thing, on a certain issue, versus Republican is more that there needs to be a representation. Like an example that I often use is police. You know, we agree in a society that police have the authority to arrest. So they're kind of like representing the laws that we're agreeing upon. Like when someone gets arrested, it's not like by a Democratic vote. Like people don't follow around and say, all right, is this person arrested? Let's all vote. So that's kind of how I use it in my head to kind of, you know, differentiate between the two. But I mean, at the convention, there was very much a pro-Israel, you know, I guess orientation in the speeches that were there, and you know, I did not wear my keffiyeh or really speak up about my, I guess, support for the Palestinian people until the last the last night of the convention. I had worn, you know, this shirt and this keffiyeh, and I sat down, was very, very quiet, and you know, the chair of the party came over to me and was asking me if I was a delegate or not, and she was asking me if I was an alternate. Originally, I was chosen to be an alternate, but they moved me up to a full delegate, you know, before the convention. So she comes over and she's kind of asking me questions like that, and then I believe the chair of the Trump party, or I guess the Trump's party support in Massachusetts guy, he came over and he's very respectful, and he kind of squatted down to me and he said that, you know, the keffiyeh was making people uncomfortable, and you know, that he was asking me to consider taking it off. And I expressed to him that I was wearing it as exercising my First Amendment right. You know, I wasn't going to you know, cause any disruption or get up and protest or chant or anything. But and then another delegate came over and she's like, "You're not going to do anything, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm going to sit here, right?" And then, you know, they had a guy come sit behind me who I think might have had a security mindset. So it was something that seemed to really, in the words of one of the delegates, put the entire place into a tizzy, which I can kind of understand given some of the, you know, I guess practices of many of the, you know, people who do support Palestine of kind of like disrupting an official process. So I do have a little, you know, empathy where they were coming from with making sure that, you know, this was the final night, Trump was going to give a speech. They wanted to ensure that there wasn't going to be any disruption for that. So I guess I do understand that to some degree, but you know, I wanted to really demonstrate that, you know, in this country, you know, we can all, I could, there's nothing saying in this country that I can't support Israel and Palestine. Or I could support everybody if I wanted to. That's kind of the freedom that we enjoy here. So wearing this was more of an exercise of the freedom and liberty of being an American. But again, recognizing that for some people, you know, there is a degree of, you know, anxiety perhaps of people who are engaging in Palestinian support and solidarity, because, you know, some of the I guess events or activities going on in certain college campuses are kind of intended to disrupt. I mean, they're utilizing their you know, their Bill of Rights and the freedom to protest. So they are doing that, but because it was a party convention and not a government type of function, it was more. It's really weird because it's like government related, but it's not. Like it wasn't like a government thing that we were doing. It was a party thing that we were doing. So perhaps maybe that was, you know, another cause of some of their concerns. But no, I mean, I get lots of questions like, how can you support with, how can you be a Republican and support Palestine? It's like, well, I have the freedom to do that. I have the freedom to do that, and it doesn't mean that I agree with everything that all Republicans do, nor what all Palestinians do. It's more of a, an expression of, sympathy and kind of heartfelt connection with people who are going through some pretty horrendous experiences. So.
Really. Do you have any things you've learned about the party that you would like to share with Greenfield in general?
Well, they handed out the Republican platform, and I was reading it, but it's hard to really take that and understand what is going to happen from it, because it's as if it's like, it reads as, okay, these are all the things that the Trump administration would do if there were no barrier. So it's more like these are all lists of whether it be the drill baby drill, that was a common chant of seeking to access fossil fuels within the United States. That appeared to be something that was very prevalent, but it didn't really talk about what the environmental effects would be, where these would be done. It was just like, we're just going to do it. And there wasn't, okay, this is where we're going to seek to meet the middle ground or work on compromises with the Democratic Party. It said, no, we need to elect as many Republicans in the House and the Senate and the presidency, so where there isn't any disagreement, we can just push this through. This is kind of the direction that we want to take things. So that was kind of the big takeaway in a general sense. But the drill baby drill, that seemed to be more relevant because I think, especially in Western Massachusetts, people engage with their environment. It's not just something that people are concerned about. People are out in the mountains and the woods, so they're actually taking pleasure in natural beauty. Apart from that, there was. It wasn't that things were specific. It was more presenting, okay, this is what has happened in America under Joe Biden, so gas prices are up and inflation and, economic things. And if Trump's elected, then that'll change. But not necessarily like, this is how it's going to change, is that this is going to change. So that might be more of the political posturing that is part of a presidential election. So.
Totally. Do you have any hopes and dreams for the Republican Party in Massachusetts?
Oh gosh. Well, I think that if people can disassociate individuals from the party, or that's the hardest, because I think especially with Donald Trump, but obviously George W. Bush probably wore this hat as well. People associate party with a person, and then if they have a distaste of the person, they have a distaste of the party. So, that would be my hope for kind of all of the states, regardless of party, because there's just as many people on the right who kind of view that way towards the people on the left with Kamala or Obama or whoever. So that's more of what I would like to see or hope to see with both parties, is that maybe gets more to like the grassroots level or local level. Because if people start engaging in the political process and they say, okay, I'm a Republican, doesn't mean that I agree with all this person says, and likewise Democrat, then I think some of the local issues can be resolved and even improved. So that's kind of where my mind is at, is people kind of taking back these political parties a little bit from a term I use is celebritician, or it's like a celebrity politician combined. So because of that type of identity of a person, it's hard to not have some immediate visceral gut response of, oh my gosh, this party, anger, So a decrease in that, because I think unless that were to happen, it's going to be harder to find common ground and, say, all right, we are on different political spheres, but we're both wanting to coexist peacefully and, promote some sort of general well-being for as many people as we can. So that is what I'd like to see, ideally.
So here in the tofu curtain, as many people call it, what has been people's reactions to you going to this convention?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, I think there's always a quizzical look or like a confused look. It's like, what? Like how can you? But my response is always, it's going to take more people who are kind of like common everyday folks, like myself that I included in that group, of going out and engaging in this political process that we have, because civics is very important, I think, for a free society. So that's kind of my response, is that I'm engaging in this process, and I'm okay with someone if they disagree. That's good. We should have disagreement. I haven't had anyone say disparaging things to me yet, and I welcome obviously comments on obviously Donald Trump, but various other Republican type of individuals as well. But no, I mean, the response has been more of just questions versus any sort of like direct, assertive, aggressive feedback. So it's been well received.
What was your favorite speech that you got to see at the convention?
Oh gosh. Well, I thought it was partially somewhat inappropriate to have so many, I guess, religious associated people of differing faiths at a function that's meant to be engaging in a process that's supposed to keep those things separate. We're supposed to have a separation of church and state, so government is supposed to not include religiosity or spirituality, at least as I understand it. So, but that being said, there was a woman who I believe was Sikh, and she gave a speech the first night that I thought was very, very impactful. Many of the religious leaders I thought gave very, because they were probably speaking on behalf of those who weren't there who might disagree. So for me, those were what I enjoyed the most because they seemed more peaceful and bridge building. But I thought J.D. Vance, his speech, he presents himself as a common everyday guy, and I actually, by accident, came within a few feet of him in a hallway, and he was with his kids, and they're pretty young, so that was something kind of hope building within me, was that okay, young parent, he may have, he may be more in touch with the kinder spirit. He might have a kinder way of viewing things and people who disagree. So as far as the political speeches, J.D. Vance definitely. But there were many good speakers, but that would probably be my favorite.
I guess many Democrats really think that Donald Trump is the whole party, and I guess I'm curious if you agree with that, or if you have like a rebuttal against that.
Well, I think because of media and media attention, he's probably the most filmed and discussed person in the Republican Party. So I think that he does take, I think, the majority of that energy and attention. But I think my rebuttal back to what I was saying before is that I've never met President Trump. I don't know really what he's like. I can draw conclusions off what he's said on television or on Twitter and things like that. But I've never met him, so I think it's important to when people are engaging in politics to start associating faces with parties of people that they actually know. So because Trump has not been seen by most Americans probably in person, or had like an actual conversation with, where they could sit down like we are and have very frank questions and conversations. I think that there is a little bit of, you know, the awe of the camera and the awe of the screen. But I don't think that he would, for me, speaks for the entire Republican Party, although I can't say that some Republicans don't think that. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's meant to be that way either, given, you know, this being a nation of government by the people. And he is a person, obviously, but he is within the realm of the elite. And I can't say that all Republicans are elite, nor can I say that all Democrats are not in the elite, because I think that, you know, people with vast amounts of wealth exist in every political sphere. So yeah, I doubt Trump knows what it's like to be a normal person. Not in a disparaging way, but, you know, there are issues that normal people have to deal with, that, you know, like paying bills and what's going to happen if the water, you know, these types of things, where for him it's just, you know, pick up a phone call and get it fixed. So
what do you think is the biggest issue for this election this year?
Oh gosh.
What issue are you watching?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I think what seems to be pushed to the forefront at present is the safety and security of, you know, not just the nation, but, you know, obviously of our elected officials and, you know, even ourselves. That appears to be what is being pushed forward. I mean, there's, you know, your typical ones of, you know, economy and things like that, which I think economy is something that many people want to be fixed. I don't know if it's the responsibility of the government to fix it, but I don't, you know, that's more of a larger question that's probably a lot deeper in explanation. But yeah, I mean, the respecting the processes of our government democratic republic system, for me, is what I pay attention to the most.
And anything you would like to add about your experience at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee?
No, I would love to hear someone from the Democratic National Convention, and if that experience was similar, because obviously I'd like to speak to someone. Obviously it hasn't happened yet, but once it does, I'd love to speak to them and see, you know, share some, what was this like? You know, what did, you know, was your experience similar to mine? So that's kind of, you know, where I'm at present, and what I'd like to see, you know, in the near future is talking to someone from that side and saying, you know, was it the same? Was it different? And how so? So.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on the show
Of
and
course.
talking about how your experience with national politics, even though you're coming from little old Greenfield.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.